Today's youth need teachers, volunteers, and most of all, well, they need you. I'm Doug Edwards, and I'm going to be talking with real youth mentors and students to give you the knowledge you need to be the best youth worker possible. This is Youth Worker on Fire. Hey, thanks again for being a part of Youth Worker on Fire podcast. Today I have George Warren with me, who is owner of a pharmacy. And by the way, I've told George this before, and I'll tell you this. One of the reasons this podcast exists is because George employed me after years of having a career in student ministry. The podcast came after I started working for them and was able to start helping youth workers go the distance, go long term. Thank you, George, for doing that, for allowing me to be a part of your business. His family has owned this pharmacy business, and it sounds like, oh, it's a tiny little quaint thing. It's not. It's about 52 employees. We're talking 4 pharmacies within a pharmacy. That's a lot of details to talk about that you're not going to hear today. But his parents started this pharmacy as a family business. So it's over 60 years old. He grew up working in this. His 2 children, Ryan, who is a pharmacy tech and does a lot of major stuff for us, and his daughter, I call her Dr. Kristen because she is a doctor of pharmacy. George should be, but he was grandfathered in. I always tell you that, I think you're a doctor and that somebody needs to give you a doctor's degree. That's just for the business part and also for the pharmacy part for all those years. So his 2 children have been a part of this since they were little kids, helping grandparents and then him. They continue even now working in the family business. So this is about family and about growing spiritually. The reason that George is on here is because it is hard to keep any business together, but to go multiple decades and multiple generations is almost unheard of with a lot of small businesses like this. It's small as far as corporate, but as far as independent businesses, it's very large. But we're going to start our conversation not just about the pharmacy and about how all those things happen and about their spiritual growth, but we want to talk about George's voice because he was a coach for years for his son's Ryan's Little League baseball team. And because you're going to hear his voice, I want him to talk about his voice and the journey that he went through, because he lost his voice while coaching his son. So, George, thanks for being on the program. Tell us a bit about your journey with your voice and what happened there.
Well, thanks, Doug. Listen, I'm really grateful that you asked me to be on the podcast. I've been able to kind of follow some of your other podcasts, and you've really been somebody that I look up to and look for guidance. You're kind of as far as the pharmacy world goes, you're kind of our spiritual leader. The pharmacy, we need that rock. Yeah, my voice is a little funny. They call it spasmodic dysphonia. It happens a lot, which might be an interest to the people that listen to your podcast, to people that use their voice a lot, school teachers, actually ministers that talk a lot. In my case, it was just trying to communicate with the right fielder who's 8 years old and, spinning circles in outfield and doing anything but playing baseball. But, trying to get them to concentrate and focus on learning the game. And we had a lot of fun doing that. But as time went on, as years went on, the voice got weaker and weaker. As you can hear, it's very strained. So there was, I've sought a lot of treatments and I've been just about everywhere to try to get that done, from UCLA in California to Vanderbilt up in Tennessee, Mayo, and up to even Chance. So there's really not a cure for it. I had some surgery done. When I found out that because of my voice, people kind of lean in to kind of hear what I'm saying, which is it's a secret that everybody should kind of learn. To talking louder is not always the key to get people to listen. It's and that happens. First time I talk to somebody on the telephone, they're not listening to what I'm saying. They're trying to figure out what's wrong with George. And They think I have this illness that's, throat cancer or something like that, but it's nothing like that. So I've asked a lot of questions, and I've prayed about it, why me, all that stuff. And, God is showing me a different way. It makes me a better listener because of the communication issues. So, it's something simple as going up to the drive-through at Wendy's and with your wife in the right side of the car, and I'm driving, and at the drive-through, Doris has to yell the order over the thing. But we come up with ways to address the issues, and I don't ask why me anymore. I just probably ask that why not me.
What I found is if we're going through some kind of problem or issue with something in our life, there's somebody else out there. And you told me, even in our community, there's a few other people that have gone through what you are going through.
Oh, yes.
And so thank you for sharing that. Since this is about student ministry and people are going, well, why would you have a pharmacist on here? Well, what I tell people is it's not only about youth pastors and volunteers and student ministry. If you're a parent or a grandparent, you're in student ministry whether you like it or not. And so now you're a grandparent, but you brought your kids up as well and in church. And did you come to Christ personally? Let's ask you about that first. How did you come to Christ personally and realize that the need for Jesus to be a part of your life?
As a very young person in church, after church was over every Sunday, when I got home, I went straight to the bathroom because I knew I was going to get a spanking for, messing around at church or being a difficult kid. And I grew up in the church. I gave my life to Christ at a very early age. I must have been 10 or 11. They were having a guest speaker, and for some reason it was just that time for me because I was at a point in my life where I'm still very young, but I was understanding. My father was a deacon. He was really involved in the church. My mother worked with the cantatas, and she worked really close with Betty Beard, one of her best friends. And the name of the church was First Baptist Church of Eustis, which is right there on Orange Avenue at the time. So, that was it. Grew up in the church. Gave my life away around to the Lord around 10 years old, 11 years old, and tried to live my life just what's right and what's wrong.
So how did a relationship with God through Christ become such a big deal for your family, though? What was it about your wife, Doris, and your children later? How did all of that to where it was a big deal for them?
I met Doris. We got married in 79. So what's that, 47 years this June. And I met Doris back, in the 8th grade in high school. And we were best friends, boyfriend, girlfriend. Met her early. Unfortunately, we broke up during the college years and got back together. It hasn't always been the easy road. There are times where it's been a little tough, but I think everybody goes to that. And I think it makes you better after stuff like the good things are way more than the bad things. The kids grew up also at First Baptist Church of Eustis, but now it's, has a different name.
Well, your kids were involved, though. I mean, that was the thing. In fact, I met them. Not only did they go there, but they'd go with their friends to the student ministry I was working with at that time. So I'd see them occasionally.
Yeah, they did.
There. So they had their church. And the great thing about Eustis is Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Clark Blake, and a lot of people that came after that because of Clark. So they not only had church, but they had community Christian events too through their public schools.
Coach Blake was my coach of football back in the day, back in high school. And I've listened to a podcast you did with Coach Blake and others like Chuck McGinette and Sarah Cook and Carrie Free, one of our pharmacists, and a guy that you introduced. I didn't know him, but that Matt Ferguson, he was awesome. And I look at them as all-stars, as people that I look up to. So I'm grateful for that. I got to meet them.
Well, and they got to meet you. I mean, that was a great thing. They feel the same way about you and what you've done in the community because they understand how hard it is to keep family together and to keep Christ at the forefront. So let's talk about your business. Business is never easy. and keeping it progressing for more than 60 years, that's almost impossible. And now with over 50 employees, keeping your family together is, to me, nothing short of a miracle. And so how has that happened? And what are some principles that you live by that you believe are key to successfully moving forward? I mean, how did it all happen, and how's it keep happening?
Well, it's really just about showing up, being present. That's kind of how I live my life. I want to be there. I want to be around whatever's happening. I don't want to sit around just watching people. I want to do things the right way. And, work hard with a purpose, I get a lot of satisfaction. I'm kind of a YouTube addict as far as if I don't know how to fix a cell phone, I will fix it myself. And, I can hire somebody out to do that. I probably should have, because that's really bad at fixing cell phones. But, those are principles, to keep my word. I think about that, it used to be back in the day that people took out loans at the bank just with a handshake. Of course, that doesn't happen anymore. But, that's probably the hardest thing is in any business is adapt and don't fall behind. We're always looking for ways to do stuff better. And there's stuff we're doing here in our pharmacy that nobody around here does as far as patient packaging that you work in that long-term care department. So when you ask me about the principles, I think that's really it. Just taking care of people first. Back in the day, when I was at Lake Pharmacy, just growing up, I was a delivery guy. I was a pharmacist. I did all that. It was all me. And the reason for that is that was only me there. So I've learned a lot about what it takes to take care of people. And if you take care of them, they take care of you. And, it's not always immediate, but we've done a lot. You're especially good about when people say good things about Bay Pharmacy. And I would always appreciate those texts that you send me about hearing good things about us.
When I first started, it was pretty overwhelming because I was in delivery for the first 5 years, and I would hear so many patients that we delivered to their homes. And we had a lot of facilities that we go to as well. But when we go to those individual homes, they said, we just can't believe how good y'all took care of us. Please tell George and tell the people at Bay Pharmacy, at Bay and Lake, that we appreciate them so much. Thank you for taking care of us. And that was over and over and over and over again. and dealing in student ministries or any ministry, you don't always hear that, those things. But to be in a business to where your deal is, you're not bringing people to you, even though a lot of them come to the building as well, but we're going to them and they're just going, we can't believe you guys do this. And we can't believe you do it with a good attitude. And you've always hired great drivers and great people with great attitudes. And that's on you. And also, you and I have talked about your dad and your mom and some of the things they mentored in you by, they did stuff and you did it because you saw them doing it. What are some of the things that your mom and dad would do that just impacted you, probably forever, and your children?
My dad, I was named after my dad, so he was George Sr., I'm George Jr. And my dad was really a hard worker. I mean, at the time, growing up, when I was just a kid, my dad would go to the pharmacy at 6:30 every morning just to drop those fried donuts in the fryer. And he was a pharmacist, but he was also the fountain, the soda fountain guy to get stuff ready. He closed the store. He opened the store at 8, closed it at 8 o'clock at night. So we never ate dinner until after 8 o'clock every night. So I thought everybody did that, and he would, this is typically my dad. He would always wear a coat and tie to work every day. He would come home. He had a garden out front in the front side yard. And I would see him out there with his coat and tie pulling weeds before he came in the house. So he grew up as a farmer up in Enterprise, Alabama. And I never knew his dad. He was pretty strict. He had a big family, and they were, like I said, they were farmers, and that's how he grew up. He actually drove the school bus when he was 14 to pick up the kids. And his story was it was during the winter, it'd be so cold in Alabama that they'd have to stop the school bus every once in a while just to burn corn stalks on the way, just to keep warm. I don't know if it was true, but yeah, that's my dad, hard worker. He wouldn't say he was an optimist, but he was actually president of the Optimist Club. But he was the biggest worrier. He worried about everything. In the early years of the pharmacy business in our town, they were just independent pharmacies. There were about 3 or 4 independent pharmacies. And I can remember the first chain pharmacy that came to Eustis. And my dad just, Mr. Optimist was just like, they're going to put us down. They're going to take us out. And of course, that didn't happen. I think we got stronger because of it. Competition is always good. Competition makes you better. You always look for ways to compete. And if there's somebody to compete with, then you have to take it up another level. So it's good. My mother was, she was, if I wanted to do something, I would ask my mother, not my dad. She was, she's always very supportive, even though I was, as a kid, I was probably a little bit crazy, long hair, the whole bit, That summer, when I turned 16, I wanted to get my pilot's license. So I didn't ask my dad, asked my mother, and she signed off on it. Went out to the airport every day during the summer. Got my private pilot's license when I was 16. After that, it just wanted to go to college, wanted to graduate, wanted to be a fighter pilot. That didn't happen, but that's a story for a different time.
I don't know. Maybe you need to tell us a little bit about it now. So you want to be a fighter pilot, but you ended up being a pharmacist. So where was the turn in the road for that?
And it was probably the good thing. This was in 1974. Vietnam was just letting out. The conflict was just about over. They were cleaning up. I went to Auburn on an Air Force ROTC scholarship. So that scholarship wasn't that much, paid for books and tuition. But I mean, that was a big thing. It surely helped my dad and my mom. There were 12 of us pilot candidates. We had to go to drill every Thursday. Stuff that normal college students don't do, but I did because the end goal was to be a fighter pilot. Unfortunately, with Vietnam ending, and our staff sergeant called all 12 of us into the office and told us a story about the Air Force doesn't need pilots anymore. So we're going to let you guys make a decision to be recategorized to missile silo specialist, or you can give up your scholarship and you don't owe the Air Force anything. And that was after a lot of trips down to Eglin Air Force Base and different things to keep the hopes of being a fighter pilot someday alive. And then that one afternoon, it was done. The smart thing I did, so sometimes I do smart things, was when I went to Auburn, even though I wanted to be a fighter pilot, I decided to enroll in pre-pharmacy to, keep that. I guess that's my plan B. As it turned out, it's not plan A, but so I didn't lose a beat. Went right through the catalog to the courses just that came up. I don't know how everybody else, how your listeners' experience with college was, but with me, it was a tough deal. Pharmacy school was tough, and it was a lot of chemistry, a lot of physiology, a lot of stuff, drug interactions. It just goes on and on. Pharmacology, toxicology, a lot of cool labs and stuff we did. But I'd lived Auburn's on quarters. I lived quarter to quarter, scared to death that I'm not going to make it next time. But just plunged on. Of course, I graduated, and pharmacy has been really good to me and to my family and to the people we've been able to employ. And, they're helping us do a good thing, I think, for people. Dad, a hard worker, taught me how to work. My mother taught me how to dream and to follow the dreams and to help me do that.
Well, that's the great thing about a family staying together and a mom and dad both being present.
And my dad ended up finding out that I was a private pilot, and actually was able to take him up flying once. So that was a blast. I wish I could have been there, but first time he'd ever been in a small airplane. So it was a big deal.
Well, I'm a dad and you're a dad, and you know that he was very proud of his son when you did that for him.
He was my rock, just like you. To have He was the guy in the community that everybody knew my dad, George Sr. So if I did something wrong in this community, this small town, he knew about it. So, I've always had to operate under a lot of pressure to be a good kid. I'm still trying to be a good kid.
Yeah, and you both.
I know, it's tough.
Our community. Here's what I know about you, though, and I know you and I've talked about your mom and dad and the influences there. But what I've seen up close and personal, and I wouldn't have if God hadn't allowed me to work with you guys. After 35 years of student ministry, and I was in ministry as a volunteer before that, and then 35 in student ministry, and then, God had me settled with you guys. But here's what I saw, what I've seen over the last many years with you, and that is our community loves you. I mean, you've been king of this and king of that for the city of Eustis for I don't know how long. You do events with them. You're not afraid to put yourself out there. They know it. You're always giving back. You don't know that I know, but I hear about other people you've helped. And sometimes those patients will say it, we'll talk about it, and sometimes we'll just hear about it in other ways. So you're always giving back to the community, and most people will never know all the stuff you do. And and most of them, unless they're business owners, and I've seen some business owners come in that own businesses like yours, and they understand what you do, and they understand that the hours are merciless and that there are many early morning hours and many late nights, and many times when you have a day off that isn't a day off. And here you are on a podcast now, I know the community loves you, and I know that you love them back, and that's a big deal. But you're always there. You're there for a lot of people, you and your wife and your children, your parents before you. And so I'm guessing that has something to do with how you keep a business together. So what would you tell people that are owning private businesses or getting ready to start something like that? Is there one or two rules that you would say, if you were to do these two things or this one thing, you're probably going to see success? What do you think that would be?
It doesn't come to you all at once. So you have to have that ability to last it out. I've said we've had issues with insurance companies, and they call them PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, that had abused independent pharmacies, and that's a whole other story. But I don't let them decide whether I stay in business or not. I'll look for different ways. Response is, if I have to sell used cars to stay in business, in the pharmacy business, I'll do it. So we're always looking for new ways to help people. We just talked with the gentleman today. You may have seen him when he was up here, but they do Medicare type things where people with high blood pressure that's pays for a special kind of blood pressure cuff that they can put on, and it has the ability to communicate with. There's ways other than dispensing medication that we can look for to help people that can support the business part of it also. When you ask the question, that's what I would say is see what your competition is doing and do it better. And don't give up.
There's lots of things in this world. If we would just simply not give up, we would succeed. That's what I see in you. And you're right. I mean, if this thing doesn't work, then we do something else. If you have to sell used cars to make sure that you keep people on medications and help them, keep their life together, then you do those things. That's someone who loves their community, loves their business, and loves their employees. And I know you worry about us as employees and stuff, because that's one reason you're able to stay in business, because you support those people that work for you. You sacrifice for us. We know it. We see it. And listen, you got some of the greatest pharmacists on your team, including your daughter, because they are attracted to you and Doris and this business, and they could have gone anywhere else. But all of them have faith in Christ, all of them. And it's not that you were looking for that. They were looking for you. They were looking for a place to be, to where they could feel freedom to be who they were.
In the 40 years that I've been doing this, it's hard to explain, but when I needed something, God delivered it. Gordon, one of our pharmacists that came to me through he was working for it. He had just moved to Lake County. And he's working at a chain pharmacy in Leesburg. And Gordon didn't call me. Gordon didn't know that I needed somebody at that time. But Gordon's wife called me and said, look, Buzz was not happy. Is there a chance maybe you have an opening? And Gordon, that was a godsend. Gordon is he's a fantastic pharmacist. He's very intelligent. He loves to talk to people. So that's been Carrie. It's the same way. Carrie was. I needed somebody in long-term care. I didn't put out an advertisement for a pharmacist. She just showed up one day. Same thing. She was working for a national chain and in more of a management position, and she wasn't happy. And she's been here. Well, both Gordon and Carrie have been here, 10 plus years, maybe 20 years. Over the years, things have just come to us. We bought that bank building, remember? Bought the bank building. We're going to, the dream was to have this awesome pharmacy in this bank building that we were going to spend a lot of money. And we had to hold on to the bank for 3 years, and it was becoming quite a burden, with taxes and upkeep and all that stuff. We never got to see that dream come true, to move into that bank building just 2 blocks away. When I was just kind of at the end of my rope with that particular burden, I guess it was by that time, I had 2 people came to me and wanted to buy it. I didn't advertise it for sale. It just, things have happened for a reason. And I'm so thankful that it's happened this way. So, we'll see what comes next. I'm 70 years old. I'm working around looking at how I can, have a good succession plan as far as, I think I do. I think Ryan and Kristen are going to do a great job. I just hope to be able to help them as much as I can and still do some of the other things such as flying and doing some of the things that Doris and I can do together before we can.
I'll leave you with this. This is Ephesians 2:10. And it says this, I heard this when I was on a student mission trip at border town in Mexico, and Maury Buchanan, who owned Mission Discovery, is a good friend of mine, and he shared this scripture. He said, "For God has created in advance good works for us to do in Christ Jesus." He's created them in advance. Before you were born, George, he created works for you to do, and you're doing them, and your father before you, and your mom, and your family after you. And so thank you for, what you've done for a community, what you've done for me personally, your employees. Thank you for sharing on this episode, because all of this is about families, about student ministry. Anytime you grow up a family, anytime you grow up a business and grow a family in it, because there sure are a lot of things that could go sideways in business and in families. I thank you for fighting the fight and being who you are. And George, if people want to get in touch with you through email or something or social media, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Probably that way. Just, I'm still an AOL guy. 6 letters. It's F as in Frank, LARPH @AOL.com. That comes directly to me. That FLARPH @AOL.com comes right to me. FLARPH
@AOL.com. Appreciate you, and I will see you on the flip side at the pharmacy.
All right, see you. Thanks, bud. Bye.
You've been listening to the Youth Worker on Fire podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and tell your friends. Also, leave a comment and tell us what you think. Stay tuned for more informative episodes.